Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3 study group. We are on class number 4, and we just finished the 4th chapter, so we're going to start with the 5th chapter. Vidura has taken shelter of Maitreya, and their conversation is going to be very, very deep. It's going to extend for several chapters, and it's going to begin the 5th chapter. But we'll start with some kirtan.
Kirtan. Our sweet souls, let's just arrive and settle together. Start with a clearing breath. Inhale through your nose, fill up. Open mouth, exhale, let it go. We start with our opening prayers, this invocation, honoring of all of our teachers, the acharyas that have walked this path before us, gifting us the torchlight knowledge, removing the darkness of the ignorance. We open our hearts and our minds with gratitude and a receptivity, a willingness to receive mercy, wisdom, and this transcendental sound vibration. Inhale, sip the breath in. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Shastra Study Group ki, Herman Bhaktiya Sangha and Beyond ki, Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Om Jnanatimirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasintubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. How do you feel about the fan? Are you a fan of the fan?
I'm always a fan of the fan, but I'm usually the only one, so we can turn it off.
Okay, if you're okay with that, that's good with me. Otherwise, you can maybe point it just a little bit away from me.
Yeah, and we can't hear it. I can't hear the
You
fan.
wouldn't want to go. You want the fan, Andy?
Okay, so maybe
Or you
just
can turn it towards us.
that's good. That works.
Is that okay?
Yeah. All right. So we finished chapter 4. We're on to chapter 5. And the main thing is that Vidura, in his wandering, has found a suitable spiritual master. Actually, he found a couple, but Uddhava deferred to Maitreya because Maitreya is his elder, because Uddhava had service to do in Bhadragashram that he was appointed to. And we're going to hear from Maitreya today, which is exciting. But let's get some reflections. Anything that you heard that stood out? Could have been in the class, could have been in your own reading, could be anyone else's reflection that stood out to you.
I have one thing. I had mentioned this last time that I sort of felt that Krishna was trying to assist Uddhava in not being so distressed by making him leave. And the purport to text 4 says, while in Dwarka, Uddhava was warned to avoid the distresses which were to follow the disappearance of the Lord and the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. It was advised to proceed to Badarika ashram because there he could associate with the devotees of Narayan, and in their association of devotional service he could increase his eagerness for chanting, hearing, knowledge, and detachment. And so that's one thought that Krishna is taking special care to have Uddhava not get wrapped up in the story that's about to unfold, because there's always a special reason for the Lord appearing, and Krishna appearing when he did was to rid the world of miscreants and to realign Dharma, and not so much there aren't that many people. I don't know if they're making sense. There aren't that many followers that are there to witness and to record everything that's going on, as opposed to when Lord Chaitanya came and he had the Goswamis and treated them to please write the story, go back and find and uncover Vrindavan and bring back what has been lost. And it was just interesting to me that Uddhava, Maitreya, Vasudev, sort of given this task of trying to keep this going as it limped along through the thousands of years, as opposed to what happened in the next incarnation with Lord Chaitanya knowing, well, we really have to push this out and have people come to an awareness. And I don't know if any of that makes sense, but it was something that just struck me. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very interesting observation because Krishna really prioritizes spreading knowledge about him. It's really dear to him. He says in the Bhagavad Gita, anyone who teaches the Bhagavad Gita to anyone else is very, very dear to him. And he says in the 4th chapter that he's continually sharing the knowledge, but because it keeps getting lost. We keep misplacing it. And by his conduct, we can see, how he empowered Vyasadeva and Vyasadev's son, Shukadeva Goswami, who spoke to Parikshit, who, Sutta Goswami heard the same conversation. Sutta Goswami is now speaking to the sages. Later, he's acting as their guru to retransmit the knowledge, and they're all like faithfully hearing from him. And so there's this, and then again, Lord Chaitanya's Leela, for sure. So there's this prioritization on really hearing the unbroken, unvarnished, kind of like pure transcendental sound vibration. As soon as Vidura is in the company of somebody who can speak that, he's so eager to hear. And they're eager to speak it. And we know the lengths, I think, that a little bit about how Srila Prabhupada went to great lengths to translate, comment, and distribute these books, especially the Srimad Bhagavatam, considering it's so important, so valuable. When he came to America with no money, the only thing that he had that really weighed anything was a trunk full of Bhagavatam Canto 1. He sold a copy to the captain on the ship. And that's not easy to lug around when you're an 80-year-old man who just had 2 heart attacks, coming to America for the first time by ship, a chest full of like books, hardbound books. You got to really want it. There were no Kindles, there was no email, so it was old school. And Lord Chaitanya even more old school, and Krishna even more old school. So traditionally it was conversational, and then when Kali Yuga came and people's memories got worse, it had to be written down because we couldn't memorize. But you're all doing it right now. We're doing this thing. We're doing the same thing Vidura did, the same thing Rupa Goswami did, learning from at the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya, the same thing Prabhupada did and instructed his disciples to do and gave his life for. So it's very very commendable that you notice that thread. The transmission of knowledge is such a major theme in Bhagavatam. Not just the knowledge itself, which is obviously super important, that we're servants of God and this is who he is and this is what it looks like and this is what he likes to do for fun, but the necessity of actually transmitting it faithfully and hearing properly, the mood in which it's done, how to prioritize that, how to do that as a service when you're functioning as a teacher, how to do that not out of your ego, but as a service, as Sutta, Shukadev, everyone does. So that's going to come up again and again, and it's going to come up in this chapter. Maitreya is going to be the guru of Vidura. So thanks for that. Yeah, any more reflections? Okay, let's jump in.
Oh, no, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
Well, no, I was gonna say I'm behind in my reading, so
That's fine.
I don't have a specific reflection on last week's chapter and canto, but in general, I just feel like there's just this repeated theme of, using discernment to determine what we need to spend our attention and time on knowledge of Krishna, and then but specifically intimate knowledge, specifically really having an intimate relationship with Krishna, and that's what keeps us coming back. Like that's why we're here, because we want to know more. We want to have more, knowledge, and that's all. It's just a simple, not very profound, but that's what I keep hearing over and over again.
Nice, very nice. Thank you for that.
I was gonna say something similar to that, to what Tandavani said, of like what brings us all to Tuesday night Shastra class or to any program that you go to, right? Deep down is wanting to have a closer relationship with God, wanting to have a place to take shelter, wanting to have that intimacy, like Chandavani was speaking about. And we were speaking about in the last class about without honest and sincere devotion, there is no question of Krishna revealing his most intimate self and heart, and that he'll never force himself on anyone. It's like really a privilege that's only given to those who want him and call out to him, and having that like be that reminder and that being part of the mood in which we chant japa right? It's like, I'm actually here because I honestly and sincerely want to know you more and serve you more, and to also bring that same mood to hearing, right? Versus, to be a good devotee, or I signed up for this course, so I have to show up, that mode, versus like, what else could be more important for the next hour, right? To just hear sincerely.
Yeah, I've never regretted a really good session of hearing and chanting. Going into it, I may dread it, depending on how purified or unpurified the state of my consciousness is. Like, oh God, this again, right? That can happen.
Right.
But I've never regretted it. It's always nectar.
There is undoubtedly something else that all of us could be tending to right now, but we chose to be here to try to have a deeper relationship, a more sincere, honest, loving, devotional relationship with God, and then bring that into whatever we're going to do outside of this.
And so many people listen to this recording doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Jai.
Yeah.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 3, Chapter 5. Vidura's talks with Maitreya. Verse 1. Shukadeva Goswami said, Vidura, the best amongst the Kuru dynasty, who was perfect in devotional service to the Lord, thus reached the source of the celestial Ganges river, Hardvar, where Maitreya, the great fathomless, learned sage of the world, was seated. Vidura, who was perfect in gentleness and satisfied in transcendence, inquired from him. Purport. Vidura was already perfect due to his unalloyed devotion to the infallible Lord. The Lord and the living entities are all qualitatively the same by nature, but the Lord is quantitatively much greater than any individual living entity. He is ever infallible, whereas the living entities are prone to fall under the illusory energy. Vidura had already surpassed the fallible nature of the living entity in conditional life due to his being Achutapava, or legitimately absorbed in the devotional service of the Lord. This stage of life is called Achutapava Siddha, or perfection by dint of devotional service. Anyone, therefore, who is absorbed in the devotional service of the Lord is a liberated soul and has all admirable qualities. The learned sage Maitreya was sitting in a solitary place on the bank of the Ganges at Hardvar, and Vidura, who was a perfect devotee of the Lord and possessed all good transcendental qualities, approached him for inquiry.
Is Hardwar the same as Haridwar?
Yeah. It's the same place.
Okay, just one has an I and one doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Which is right next to Rishikesh.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Many of us have been to.
The foot of the Himalayan mountains. Verse 2. Vidura said, O great sage, everyone in this world engages in fruitive activities to attain happiness, but one finds neither satiation nor the mitigation of distress. On the contrary, one is only aggravated by such activities. Please, therefore, give us directions on how one should live for real happiness. Purport. Vidura asked Maitreya some common questions, which was not originally his intention. Uddhava asked Vidura to approach Maitreya Muni and inquire into all the truths concerning the Lord, his name, fame, qualities, form, pastimes, entourage, etc. And thus, when Vidura approached Maitreya, he should have asked only about the Lord. But out of natural humility, he did not immediately ask about the Lord, but inquired into a subject which would be of great importance to the common person. A common person cannot understand the Lord. They must first know the real position of their life, under the influence of the illusory energy. In illusion, one thinks that they can be happy only by fruitive activities. But what actually happens is that one becomes more and more entangled in the network of action and reaction and does not find any solution to the problem of life. There is a nice song in this connection. Quote, because of a great desire to have all happiness in life, I built this house. But unfortunately, the whole scheme has turned to ashes because the house was unexpectedly set on fire. The law of nature is like that. Everyone tries to become happy by planning in the material world. But the law of nature is so cruel that it sets fire to one's schemes. The fruitive worker is not happy in their schemes, nor is there any satiation of their continuous hankering for happiness. 3. O my Lord, great philanthropic souls travel on the earth on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to show compassion to the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord. In the purport, great unalloyed devotees of the Lord are compassionate towards the fallen, and therefore they travel all over the world with the mission of bringing souls back to Godhead, back to home. Such pure devotees of the Lord carried the message of Godhead in order to deliver the fallen souls, and therefore the common person who is bewildered by the influence of the external energy of the Lord should avail himself of their association. Or, therefore, O great sage, please give me instruction on the transcendental devotional service of the Lord, so that he who is situated in the heart of everyone can be pleased to impart from within knowledge of the absolute truth in terms of the ancient Vedic principles delivered only to those who are purified by the process of devotional service. In the purport, by devotional service only does one's heart become completely purified from all material coverings like karma, jnana, and yoga. Only in such a purified stage does the Lord, who is seated in everyone's heart with the individual soul, give instruction so that the devotee can reach the ultimate destination of going back home, back to Godhead. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Tesham satati yuktanam bhajitam. Only when the Lord is satisfied with the devotional service of the devotee does he impart knowledge, as he did for Arjuna and Uddhava. The jnanis, yogis, and karmis cannot expect this direct cooperation of the Lord. They are not able to satisfy the Lord by transcendental loving service, nor do they believe in such service to the Lord. The bhakti process is performed under the regulated principles of Vaidhi bhakti, or devotional service following the prescribed rules and regulations, is defined by the revealed scriptures and confirmed by the great acharyas. This practice can help the neophyte devotee to rise to the stage of raga bhakti, in which the Lord responds from within as the Chaitya Guru, or the spiritual master as super consciousness. Five. O great sage, kindly narrate how the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the independent, desireless Lord of the three worlds, and the controller of all energies, accepts incarnations and creates the cosmic manifestation with perfectly arranged, regulated principles for its maintenance. If you remember to the end of the second canto, one of the topics of the Bhagavatam that is stated, there's 10 topics stated there. One is Isha Anukata, the descriptions of the incarnations of the Lord. So that's what this question is asking. How is it that the independent Lord, who's the controller of all energies, accepts incarnations and creates the cosmic manifestation with perfectly arranged regulated principles for its maintenance? That's several other topics actually too. So the maintenance, the creation of the universe, maintenance of the universe, and expansion of the Lord into several varieties of incarnations. That's 3 of the 10 topics right there. So these are like core questions that Vidura is asking. From the purport, because of their, there is no scarcity for maintenance in the material world. Because of their poor fund of knowledge, the materialists are disturbed when there is an apparent increase of population on the earth. Whenever there is a living being on the earth, however, their subsistence is immediately arranged by the Lord. The other species of living entities who far outnumber human society are never disturbed for maintenance. They are never seen dying of starvation. It is only human society that is disturbed about the food situation, and to cover up the real fact of administrative mismanagement, takes shelter in the plea that the population is excessively increasing. If there is any scarcity in the world, it is the scarcity of God consciousness. Otherwise, by the grace of the Lord, there is no scarcity of anything. 6. He lies down on his own heart, spread in the form of the sky, and thus placing the whole creation in that space, he expands himself into many living entities, which are manifested as different species of life. He does not have to endeavor for his maintenance, because he is the master of all mystic powers and the proprietor of everything. Thus he is distinct from the living entities. 7. You may narrate also about the auspicious characteristics of the Lord in his different incarnations, for the welfare of the twice-born, the cows, and the demigods. Our minds are never satisfied completely, although we continuously hear of his transcendental activities. From the purport, that the Lord's pastimes for the protection of the twice-born civilized person, the cows, and the demigods are all transcendental. A human being is inclined to hear good narrations and stories, and therefore there are so many books, magazines, and newspapers on the market to satisfy the interests of the developed soul. But the pleasure in such literature, after it is read once, becomes stale, and people do not take any interest in reading such literature repeatedly. In fact, newspapers are read for less than an hour and then thrown in the dustbins as rubbish. The case is similar with all other mundane literatures. But the beauty of transcendental literatures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is that they never become old. They have been read in the world by civilized persons for the last 5,000 years, and they have never become old. They are ever fresh to the learned scholars and devotees, and even by daily repetition of the verses of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, there is no satiation for devotees like Vidura. Vidura might have heard the pastimes of the Lord many, many times before he met Maitreya, but still he wanted the same narrations to be repeated because he was never satiated by hearing them. That is the transcendental nature of the Lord's glorious pastimes. 8. The Supreme King of all kings has created different planets and places of habitation, where living entities are situated in terms of the modes of nature and work, and he has created their different kings and rulers. Verse 9. O chief amongst the Brahmanas, please also describe how Narayana, the creator of the universe, and the self-sufficient Lord, has differently created the natures, activities, forms, features, and names of the different living entities. 10. O my Lord, I have repeatedly heard about these higher and lower statuses of human society from the mouth of Vyasadeva, and I am quite satiated with all these lesser subject matters and their happiness. They have not satisfied me with the nectar of topics about Krishna. From the purport, because people are very much interested in hearing social and historical presentations, Srila Vyasadeva has compiled many books, such as the Puranas and Mahabharata. The real purpose of such literatures is not so much to present topics of historical references, but to revive the people's sense of God consciousness. For example, Mahabharata is the history of the Battle of Kurukshetra, and common people read it because it is full of topics regarding the social, political, and economic problems of human society. But factually, the most important part of Mahabharata is Bhagavad Gita, which is automatically taught to readers along with historical narrations of the Battle of Kurukshetra. Vidura explained to Maitreya his position of being fully satiated with the knowledge of mundane social and political topics and having no more interest in them. He was anxious to hear transcendental topics regarding Lord Sri Krishna. Because there were insufficient topics directly concerning Krishna in the Purana, Mahabharata, etc., he was not satisfied and wanted to know more about Krishna. Krishna Katha, or topics regarding Krishna, are transcendental, and there is no satiation in hearing such topics. There are two important Krishna Kathas current in the world, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavad Gita is Krishna Katha because it is spoken by Krishna, whereas Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna Katha because it narrates about Krishna. Lord Chaitanya advised all his disciples to preach Krishna Katha all over the world without discrimination because the transcendental value of Krishna Katha can purify one and all from material contamination. This is a very relatable desire of Vidura's. I've watched enough reality TV. I've seen enough sporting events. I don't need any more soap operas, plot lines. I want to hear transcendental topics. That's what's going to really satisfy me. The other stuff's not cutting it. 11. Who in human society can be satisfied without hearing sufficient talk of the Lord, whose lotus feet are the sum total of all places of pilgrimage, and who is worshipped by great sages and devotees? Such topics can cut off one's bondage to family affections simply by entering the holes of one's ears. Purport: Krishna Katha is so powerful that simply by entering to a person's ear, it can at once give deliverance from the bondage of family affection. Family affection is an illusory manifestation of the external energy, and it is the only impetus for all mundane activities. As long as there is mundane activity and the mind is absorbed in such engagement, one has to undergo the repetition of birth and death in the current material nescience. People are most influenced by the mode of ignorance, and some are influenced by the passionate mode of material nature. And under the spell of these two modes, a living being is actuated by the material conception of life. The mundane qualities do not allow a living entity to understand their real position. The qualities of both ignorance and passion strongly bind one to the illusory bodily conception of the self. The best among the fools who are thus deluded are those who engage in altruistic activities under the spell of the material mode of passion. Bhagavad Gita, which is directly Krishna Katha, gives humanity the elementary lesson that the body is perishable and that the consciousness which is spread throughout the body is imperishable. To preach Krishna Katha all over the world, as recommended by Lord Chaitanya, is the greatest missionary activity, and all sensible men and women of the world may join in this great movement started by Lord Chaitanya, because it situates one in consciousness of the self beyond the body. 12. Your friend, the great sage Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, that's Vyasadeva, has already described the transcendental qualities of the Lord in his great work, the Mahabharata. But the whole idea is to draw the attention of the mass of people to Krishna Katha, Bhagavad Gita, through their strong affinity for hearing mundane topics, right? This is what Prabhupada said earlier when he says that the Mahabharata has so much politics and intrigue and social discussion of social considerations, and there's like drama and is a hero story and like romance and adventure and all that stuff. And Vidura is saying this is to draw the attention of the mass of people to Krishna Katha because of their strong affinity for hearing mundane topics. 13, because the Bhagavad Gita is in the Mahabharata. 13, for one who is anxious to engage constantly in hearing such topics, Krishna Katha gradually increases their indifference towards all other things. Such constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna by the devotee who has achieved transcendental bliss vanquishes all their miseries without delay. From the purport, the Shraddhadhana or faithful devotee can actually derive all the benefits of Bhagavad Gita because by the omnipotency of the Lord, they achieve the transcendental bliss which vanquishes attachment and nullifies all concomitant material miseries. Only the devotee by their factual experience can understand the import of this verse spoken by Vidura. The pure devotee of the Lord enjoys life by constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Lord by hearing Krishna Katha. For such a devotee, there is no such thing as material existence, and the much advertised bliss of Brahmananda, impersonal knowledge, is like a fig for the devotee who is in the midst of the transcendental ocean of bliss. 14. O sage, persons who, because of their sinful activities, are averse to the topics of transcendence, and thus ignorant of the purpose of the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, are pitied by the pitiable. I also pity them because I see how their duration of life is spoiled by eternal time, while they involve themselves in presentations of philosophical speculation, theoretical ultimate goals of life, and different modes of ritual. 15. O Maitreya, O friend of the distressed, the glories of the Supreme Lord can alone do good for people all over the world. Therefore, just as bees collect honey from flowers, kindly describe the essence of all topics, the topics of the Lord. From the purport, for the pure devotees like Vidura, the topics of both the mundaners and the mental speculators are useless in all respects. Thus Vidura requested Maitreya to talk of the essence only, the talks of Krishna, and nothing else. 16. Kindly chant all those superhuman transcendental activities of the Supreme Controller, the Personality of Godhead, who accepted incarnations fully equipped with all potency for the full manifestation and maintenance of the cosmic creation. From the purport, Vidura was undoubtedly very eager to hear about Lord Krishna in particular, but he was overwhelmed because Lord Krishna had just passed away from the visible world. He therefore wanted to hear about him in his Purusha incarnations, which he manifests with full potencies for the creation and maintenance of the cosmic world. The activities of the Purusha incarnations are but an extension of the activities of the Lord. This hint was given by Vidura to Maitreya because Maitreya could not decide which part of the activities of Lord Krishna should be chanted. It's an interesting point that Vidura is feeling the separation from Krishna, and so Vidura is asking specifically, yes, talk all about Krishna, but you can start with talking about how he manifests the material world, right? So that one can imagine, like, to have a sense of connection with him, even though he's left, because it's still his energy. This world is still his energy, and it's a very relatable situation. We may think like, I mean, Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago, Lord Chaitanya 500 years ago. Tough luck for me, right? I guess I'm not fortunate enough, but our practical spiritual experience is available no matter what, time period we live in. And how that's so is going to be described through that discussion of the Purusha incarnations who manifest the material energy the way they do as the universes. 17. Shukadeva Goswami said, the great sage Maitreya Muni, after honoring Vidura very greatly, began to speak at Vidura's request for the greatest welfare of all people. From the purport, the all-inclusive welfare service for the entire human society is devotional service to the Lord, and as requested by Vidura, the sage described the same very appropriately. 18. Sri Maitreya said, O Vidura, all glory unto you. You have inquired for me of the greatest of all goodness, and thus you have shown your mercy both to the world and to me, because your mind is always absorbed in thoughts of the transcendence. From the purport, because Vidura was always absorbed in thought of the Lord, Maitreya could estimate Vidura's transcendental value. He appreciated the valuable inquiries of Vidura and thus thanked him with great honor. 19. O Vidura, it is not at all wonderful that you have so accepted the Lord without deviation of thought, for you were born from the semen of Vyasadeva. Purport, the value of great parentage and noble birth is evaluated here in connection with the birth of Vidura. The birth of a human being is a great science, and therefore reformation of the act of impregnation, according to the Vedic ritual called Garbhadhana Samskar, is very important for generating good population. The problem is not to check the growth of the population, but to generate good population on the level of Vidura, Vyasa, and Maitreya. There is no need to check the growth of population if the children are born as human beings with all precautions regarding their birth. So-called birth control is not only vicious, but also useless. There's a description in other places. Effectively, the consciousness of the parents leaves an imprint on the consciousness. The level of consciousness of the soul that's brought in to, appear in that family. So there is a science there. It wasn't just like mate like animals and create children. There's an intentionality there, right? That Prabhupada is alluding to here. Okay. 20. I know that you are now. Oh, I see. I know that you are now Vidura due to the cursing of Mandavya Muni, and that formerly you were King Yamaraj, the great controller of living entities after their death. You were begotten by the son of Satyavati, Vyasadeva, in the kept wife of his brother. This is a very interesting backstory to Vidura we haven't heard yet. From the purport, Mandavya Muni was a great sage. You can read more about him in Bhagavatam 1.13.1. And Vidura was formerly the controller Yamaraj, who takes charge of the living entities after death. As the appointed controller after death, Yamaraja once tried Mandavya Muni for his childhood profligacy and ordered him to be pierced with a lance. Mandavya, being angry at Yamaraj for awarding him undue punishment, cursed him to become a Shudra. Thus Yamaraj took birth in the womb of the kept wife of Vichitravirya from the semen of Vichitravirya's brother Vyasadeva. This mysterious history of Vidura was known to Maitreya Muni because he happened to be a contemporary friend of Vyasadeva's. In spite of Vidura's birth from the womb of a kept wife, because he had otherwise high parentage and great connection, he inherited the highest talent of becoming a great devotee of the Lord. To take birth in such a great family is understood to be an advantage for attaining devotional service. Vidura was given this chance due to his previous greatness. 21. Your good self is one of the eternal associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for whose sake the Lord, while going back to his abode, left instructions with me. Purport. Yamaraj, the great controller of life after death, decides the living entities' destinies in their next lives. He is surely among the most confidential representatives of the Lord. Such confidential posts are offered to great devotees of the Lord who are as good as his eternal associates in the spiritual sky. And because Vidura happened to be among them, the Lord, while returning to Vaikuntha, left instructions for Vidura with Maitreya Muni. Generally, the eternal associates of the Lord in the spiritual sky do not come to the material world. Sometimes they come, however, by the order of the Lord, not to hold any administrative post, but to associate with the Lord in person, or to propagate the message of God in human society. Such empowered representatives are called Shakti-alvesha avatars, or incarnations invested with transcendental power of attorney. So,
Transcendental power.
yeah, this is a class of avatar that are not actually in the category of Vishnu. They're not God. They're his devotee. But they're Shakti Avesh means they're empowered with a specific Shakti, energy, empowerment, to fulfill something that one could not do on their own without divine power. And sometimes they are, Prabhupada's saying they're descending from the spiritual realm to do that, to take that service. So Vidura, who is Yamaraj and is an eternal associate of the Lord, because Yamaraj is a very trusted devotee, Yamaraj has to judge living entities when they die. At least those who have no devotional inclination, have made no spiritual advancement. He has to give them their karmic due, right? What kind of body, where they go. And to do that, he has to be empowered with the qualities of supersoul. He has to know their heart. And no judge can know anybody's heart unless they have the empowerment to actually like dwell within the heart, like supersoul does. They have to know, what does this person feel? What do they desire? What were their activities? What is the balance, right? And they have that. Yamaraja has that empowerment because he's so trusted. So he's a great devotee. And he's coming as Vidura because of this pastime of being cursed. Vidura, Yamaraj, lays down judgment for Mandakya Muni or Mandavyamuni. Mandavyamuni is like, how dare you? I curse you to be a Shudra. And it's all just a play. It's all just Leela so that Vidura can come. And he's a great devotee in these pastimes. And Maitreya is saying, I see this. I understand this, right? That's what's happening behind all these questions and who you really are. You're like a Shakti Avesh avatar. 22. I shall therefore describe to you the pastimes by which the personality of Godhead extends his transcendental potency for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic world as they occur one after another. 23. The personality of Godhead, the master of all living entities, existed prior to the creation as one without a second. It is by his will only that creation is made possible, and again, everything merges in him. This supreme self is symptomized by different names. From the purport. The great sage here begins to explain the purpose of the 4 original verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Although they have no access to the Srimad Bhagavatam, the followers of the Mayavad impersonalist school sometimes screw out an imaginary explanation of the original 4 verses, but we must accept the actual explanation given herein by Maitreya Muni because he, along with Uddhava, personally heard it directly from the Lord. "24. The Lord, the undisputed proprietor of everything, was the only seer. The cosmic manifestation was not present at that time, and thus he felt imperfect, without his plenary and separated parts and parcels. The material energy was dormant, whereas the internal potency was manifested." So in this section, Maitreya is describing the process of creation. Primary creation, Sarga. The original creation of what we're going to see is a list of 23 different elements. Visarga is the secondary creation, which we heard about in the second canto, how Brahma takes these elements and what he does with them to manifest different planetary systems and so forth, different kinds of bodies. This is the primary creation, Sarga. From the purport, the Lord is the supreme seer because only by his glance did the material energy become active for cosmic manifestation. At that time, the seer was there, but the external energy over which the glance of the Lord is cast was not present. He felt somewhat insufficient, like a husband feeling lonely in the absence of his wife. This is a poetic simile. The Lord wanted to create the cosmic manifestation to give another chance to the conditioned souls who were dormant in forgetfulness. The cosmic manifestation gives the conditioned souls a chance to go back home, back to Godhead, and that is its main function. The Lord is so kind that in the absence of such manifestation, he feels something wanting, and thus the creation takes place. It is the compassion of the Lord for the sleeping energy that he wants to see her awaken for enjoyment like the other wives who are awake. The whole process is to enliven the sleeping conditioned souls to the real life of spiritual consciousness, so that they may thus become as perfect as the ever-liberated souls in the Vaikuntha lokas. 25. Of note, this is because time is cyclical. Because of Krishna's nature, he never tires of doing this. He always gives the living entities another chance, even though so many of them may continue to become distracted for another lifetime of Brahma, 311 trillion years. Everything is unmanifested again. But again, he's like, you know what? Let's do this. So that's his mercy. 25. The Lord is the seer, and the external energy which is seen works as both cause and effect in the cosmic manifestation. O greatly fortunate Vidura, this external energy is known as Maya or illusion, and through her agency only is the entire material manifestation made possible. 26. The Supreme Living Being in its feature as the transcendental Purusha incarnation, who is the Lord's plenary expansion, impregnates the material nature of three modes, and thus by the influence of eternal time, the living entities appear. From the purport, we should not understand the process of impregnation by the personality of Godhead in terms of our conception of sex. The omnipotent Lord can impregnate just by his eyes, and therefore he is called all-potent. The Lord is described here as Viryavan, or the greatest potent being, because he impregnates material nature with innumerable living entities who are conditioned from time immemorial. That's his glance. 27. Thereafter, influenced by the interactions of eternal time, the supreme sum total of matter, called the Mahatattva, became manifested. And in this Mahatattva, the unalloyed goodness, the Supreme Lord sowed the seeds of universal manifestation out of his own body. From the purport, the Mahatattva is directly connected with the supreme consciousness of the Supreme Being, but still it appears as matter. The Mahatattva, or shadow of pure consciousness, is the germinating place of all creation. It is pure goodness with the slight addition of the material mode of passion, and therefore activity is generated from this point. 28. Thereafter, the Mahatattva differentiated itself into many different forms as a reservoir of the would-be entities. Right? The entities are not even really like embodied yet. These are the building blocks that are being established. The real building blocks of the whole universe. The Mahatattva is chiefly in the mode of ignorance, and it generates the false ego. It is a plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead with full consciousness of creative principles and time for fructification. From the purport, this false ego is the binding force of material existence. The Lord again and again gives a chance to the bewildered conditioned souls to get free from this false ego. And that is why the material creation takes place at intervals. He gives the conditioned souls all facilities for rectifying the activities of the false ego, but he does not interfere with their small independence as parts and parcels of the Lord. 29. Mahatattva, or the great causal truth, transforms into false ego, which is manifested in three phases: cause, effect, and the doer. All such activities are on the mental plane and are based on the material elements, gross senses, and mental speculation. The false ego is represented in three different modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. 30. The false ego is transformed into mind by interaction with the mode of goodness. All the demigods who control the phenomenal world are also products of the same principle, namely the interaction of false ego and the mode of goodness. Interesting that the mind is originally a creation of the mode of goodness. We had this earlier, I think, in the second canto also, which is almost counterintuitive because the mind is, as we experience, it's so flickering. We would think passion, right? But that's because our minds are not purified. The mind in its original feature is actually sattvic. It's like water. Water's nature is to be transparent, but if you move it around, yeah, you put it in the fridge, it gets frozen. That's like ignorance. You know, it's a block now. But you can also just like muddy it up with dirt. You can roil it around like with whirlpools. You can't see through a whirlpool. There's too much going on. There's air and stuff mixed in there. So the mind is like that with the lower modes. 31. The senses are certainly products of the mode of passion in false ego, and therefore philosophical speculative knowledge and fruitive activities are predominantly products of the mode of passion. From the purport, the chief function of the false ego is godlessness. When a person forgets their constitutional position as an eternally subordinate part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and wants to be independently happy independently, they function mainly in two ways. They first attempt to act fruitively for personal gain or sense gratification, and after attempting such fruitive activities for a considerable time, when they are frustrated, they become a philosophical speculator and think themselves to be on the same level as God. This false idea of becoming one with the Lord is the last snare of the illusory energy, which traps a living entity into the bondage of forgetfulness under the spell of false ego. 32. The sky is a product of sound, and sound is a transformation of egoistic ignorance. In other words, the sky is a symbolic representation of the Supreme Soul. From the purport, those who are egoistic in passion and ignorance cannot conceive of the personality of Godhead. For them, the sky is a symbolic representation of the Supreme Soul. 33. Thereafter, the personality of Godhead glanced over the sky, partly mixed with eternal time and external energy, and thus developed the touch sensation from which the air in the sky was produced. Right? These are, again, building blocks. There's no one here but the Lord. There's no demigods yet. He's manifesting the potential for objects of the senses. He's manifesting the potential for the mind and the senses and sense objects. From the purport, all material creations take place from subtle to gross. The entire universe is developed in that manner. From the sky, ether, that's how it's being translated as sky ether, the ether element, developed the touch sensation, which is a mixture of eternal time, the external energy, and the glance of the personality of Godhead. By the way, ether, which is recognized in the Greek metaphysics too, they talk about the quintessence, ether, air, water, fire, earth too. At least for us, in terms of the Bhagavatam and this philosophy, ether is actually like, it's very subtle, but it's not, a little clarification might help. Ether is the potential for space. Ether is the potential for space, even if nothing fills that space, right? So before there's a universe, Krishna manifests ether, so there can actually be space. Now that space can be filled with air, water, fire, anything liquid, solid, doesn't matter, but the potential for space itself is ether. So that's an element in this conception. That's what we're talking about. And from that subtle element, Prabhupada's saying, the sky developed the touch sensation, which is a mixture of eternal time, et cetera, et cetera. The touch sensation developed into the air. So we got this in Canto 2 also. Sound is associated with ether. Touch is associated with air. They're developing from subtle to gross, one after the other. Just like you may have an idea in your mind, right? That's a very subtle expression. I can look in your eyes and I don't know what you're thinking, unless I'm very subtle myself. But you're thinking. There's something going on up there, and it may come out of your mouth. It's a sound. And from that sound, we may drop some blueprints. Next thing you know, we got like a hole in the ground, we're building a building because you had an idea. Everything moves from subtle to gross. So similar to the manifestation of the universe is going from subtle to gross. And when you hear these technical descriptions, just understand that's the flow. Similarly, all other gross matter also developed from subtle to gross. Sound developed into sky. Touch developed into air. Form developed into fire. Taste developed into water. And smell developed into earth. 34. Thereafter, the extremely powerful air interacting with the sky generated the form of sense perception. And the perception of form transformed into electricity, the light to see the world. 35. When electricity was surcharged in the air and was glanced over by the Supreme, at that time, by a mixture of eternal time and external energy, there occurred the creation of water and taste. You're getting sound into touch, into sight, into taste, into smell. Sky, or ether, into air, into fire, into water, into earth. That's the flow. That's the direction. 36. Thereafter, the water produced from electricity was glanced over by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and mixed with eternal time and external energy. Thus, it was transformed into the earth, which is qualified primarily by smell. From the purport. From the descriptions of the physical elements in the above verses, It is clear that in all stages the glance of the Supreme is needed with the other additions and alterations. In every transformation, the last finishing touch is the glance of the Lord, who acts as a painter does when they mix different colors to transform them into a particular color. When one element mixes with another, the number of its qualities increases. For example, the sky is the cause of air. Ether is the cause of air. The sky has only one quality, namely sound. But by the interaction of the sky with the glance of the Lord, mixed with eternal time and the external nature, the air is produced, which has two qualities, sound and touch. Similarly, after the air is created, the interaction of sky and air touched by time, the external energy of the Lord produces electricity, or light. Next, the interaction of electricity with air and sky mixed with time, etc., produces water. In the final stage of sky, there is one quality, namely sound. In the air, two qualities, sound and touch. In the electricity or light, three qualities, namely sound, touch, and form. In the water, four qualities, sound, touch, form, and taste. And in the last stage of physical development, the result is earth, which has all five qualities, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. Although they are different mixtures of different materials, such mixtures do not take place automatically. Just as a mixture of colors does not take place automatically without the touch of the living painter. The automatic system is factually activated by the glancing touch of the Lord. Living consciousness is the final word in all physical changes. 37. O gentle one, of all the physical elements beginning from the sky down to the earth, all the inferior and superior qualities are due only to the final touch of the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 38. The controlling deities of all the above-mentioned physical elements are empowered expansions of Lord Vishnu. They are embodied by eternal time under the external energy, and they are his parts and parcels. Because they were entrusted with different functions of universal duties and were unable to perform them, they offered fascinating prayers to the Lord as follows. So the potential for these sense objects is here, and then the Lord's system is that there's administrators, there's people who are taking care of that, but they were unable to perform their functions. So at the beginning of the creation, they themselves offer prayers to fulfill the role that they are entrusted with. From the purport, such control is not superfluous, it is as necessary as the controlling departments in the affairs of a modern state. The demigods should not be despised by the controlled living beings. They are all great devotees of the Lord, entrusted to execute certain functions of universal affairs. One may be angry with Yamaraja for his thankless task of punishing sinful souls, but Yamaraja is one of the authorized devotees of the Lord, and so are all the other demigods. A devotee of the Lord is never controlled by such deputed demigods, who function as assistants of the Lord, but he shows them all respects on account of the responsible positions to which they have been appointed by the Lord. At the same time, a devotee of the Lord does not foolishly mistake them to be the Supreme Lord. Only foolish persons accept the demigods as being on the same level as Vishnu. Actually, they're all appointed as servants of Vishnu. And the evidence is, of course, that they have to offer prayers to even serve him, as they're doing here. They're humble and dedicated devotees. 39. The demigod said, O Lord, your lotus feet are like an umbrella for the surrendered souls, protecting them from all the miseries of material existence. All the sages under that shelter throw off all material miseries. We therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet. Right? This is a series of prayers from here to the end of the chapter. These 5 verses till verse 43 are talking about the glorious shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. 40. O Father, O Lord, O Personality of Godhead, the living entities in the material world can never have any happiness because they are overwhelmed by the 3 kinds of miseries. Therefore, they take shelter of the shade of your lotus feet, which are full of knowledge, and we also take shelter of them. 41. The lotus feet of the Lord are by themselves the shelter of all places of pilgrimage. The great clear-minded sages, carried by the wings of the Vedas, always search after the nest of your lotus-like face. Some of them surrender to your lotus feet at every step by taking shelter of the best of rivers, the Ganges, which can deliver one from all sinful reactions. 42. Simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them within the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge. and on the strength of detachment one becomes pacified. We must therefore take shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet. (43) O Lord, you assume incarnations for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation, and therefore we all take shelter of your lotus feet because they always award remembrance and courage to your devotees. From the purport, for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation, there are three incarnations: Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, or Lord Shiva. Vishnu is the master of the mode of goodness, Brahma is the master of the mode of passion, and Maheshwara is the master of the mode of ignorance. There are different kinds of devotees according to the modes of nature. Persons in the mode of goodness worship Lord Vishnu. Those in the mode of passion worship Lord Brahma. And those in the mode of ignorance worship Lord Shiva. All three of these deities are incarnations of the Supreme Lord Krishna because he is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. The demigods directly refer to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord and not to the different incarnations. The incarnation of Vishnu in the material world is, however, directly worshipped by the demigods. That's how Brahma prayed for the Lord to appear when he was requested by the planet Earth. At the beginning of the 10th canto, he prays to the Vishnu incarnation who's present in the universe that he's in, who's an expansion of the Lord. 44. O Lord, persons who are entangled by undesirable eagerness for the temporary body and kinsman, and who are bound by thoughts of mine and I, are unable to see your lotus feet, although your lotus feet are situated within their own bodies. But let us take shelter of your lotus feet. From the purport, the impetus for lording it over material nature is a sense of mine and I. Quote, I am the Lord of all that I survey. So many things I possess, and I shall possess more and more. Who can be richer than I in wealth and education? I am the master, and I am God. Who else is there but me? All these ideas reflect the philosophy of aham mama, the conception that I am everything. Persons conducted by such a conception of life can never get liberation from material bondage. But even a person perpetually condemned to the miseries of material existence can get relief from bondage if they simply agree to hear only Krishna Katha. In this age of Kali, the process of hearing Krishna Katha is the most effective means to gain release from unwanted family affection and thus find permanent freedom in life. The age of Kali is full of sinful reactions, and people are more and more addicted to the qualities of this age, but simply by hearing and chanting of Krishna Katha, one is sure to go back to Godhead. 45. O great Supreme Lord, offensive persons whose internal vision has been too affected by external materialistic activities cannot see your lotus feet, but they are seen by your pure devotees whose one and only aim is to transcendently enjoy your activities. From the purport, the devotees of the Lord are so kind that they roam to all places to enlighten people in God consciousness. The offenders, however, lose the chance to receive the Lord's devotees, although the offenseless common man is at once influenced by the devotees' presence. In this connection, there's an interesting story of a hunter and Devarshi Narada. A hunter in the forest, although a great sinner, was not an intentional offender. He was at once influenced by the presence of Narada, and he agreed to take the path of devotion, leaving aside his hearth and home. But the offenders Nalakuvara and Manigriva, even though living amongst the demigods, had to undergo the punishment of becoming trees in their next lives, although by the grace of a devotee, again Narada Muni, they were later delivered by the Lord. That's in the 10th canto. That's the end of the Damodar Lila. Offenders have to wait until they receive the mercy of devotees, and then they can become eligible to see the lotus feet of the Lord within themselves. But due to their offenses and their extreme materialism, they cannot even see the devotees of the Lord. Engaged in external activities, they kill the internal vision. The Lord's devotees, however, do not mind the offenses of the foolish and their many gross and subtle bodily endeavors. The Lord's devotees continue to bestow the blessings of devotion upon all such offenders without hesitation. That is the nature of devotees. 46. O Lord, persons who, because of their serious attitude, attain the stage of enlightened devotional service achieve the complete meaning of renunciation and knowledge, and attain the Vaikuntha Loka in the spiritual sky simply by drinking the nectar of your topics. 47. Others who are pacified by means of transcendental self-realization and have conquered over the modes of nature by dint of strong power and knowledge also enter into you, but for them there is much pain, whereas the devotee simply discharges devotional service and thus feels no such pain. Purport. In terms of a labor of love and its returns, the bhaktas or devotees of the Lord always have priority over persons who are addicted to the association of jnanis or impersonalists and yogis or mystics. The word apare others is very significant in this connection. Others refers to the jnanis and the yogis, whose only hope is to merge into the existence of the impersonal Brahmajyoti. Although their destination is not so important in comparison to the destination of the devotees, the labor of the non-devotees is far greater than that of the bhaktas. One may suggest that there is sufficient labor for the devotees also in the matter of discharging devotional service, but that labor is compensated by the enhancement of transcendental pleasure. The devotees derive more transcendental pleasure while engaged continuously in the service of the Lord than when they have no such engagement. 48. O original person, we are therefore but yours only. Although we are your creatures, we are born one after another under the influence of the three modes of nature, and for this reason we are separated in action. Therefore, after the creation, we could not act concertedly for your transcendental pleasure. Purport. The cosmic creation is working under the influence of the three modes of the external potency of the Lord. Different creatures are also under the same influence, and therefore they cannot act concertedly in satisfying the Lord. Because of this diverse activity, there cannot be any harmony in the material world. The best policy, therefore, is to act for the sake of the Lord. That will bring about the desired harmony. 49. O unborn one, please enlighten us regarding the ways and means by which we can offer you all enjoyable grains and commodities, so that both we and all other living entities in this world can maintain ourselves without disturbance, and can easily accumulate the necessities of life both for you and for ourselves. From the purport, the modern theory that starvation is due to an increase in population is not accepted by the demigods or the devotees of the Lord. The devotees or demigods are fully aware that the Lord can maintain any number of living entities, provided they are conscious of how to eat. If they want to eat like ordinary animals, who have no God consciousness, then they must live in starvation, poverty, and want, like the jungle animals in the forest. The jungle animals are also maintained by the Lord with their respective foodstuffs, but they are not advanced in God consciousness. Similarly, human beings are provided with food grains, vegetables, fruits, and milk by the grace of the Lord, but it is the duty of human beings to acknowledge the mercy of the Lord. As a matter of gratitude, they should feel obliged to the Lord for their supply of foodstuff, and they must first offer him food in sacrifice and then partake of the remnants, right? It's like, this is a very universal idea, like saying grace. The demigods are they may still have some material desire, like to exist in the material world and thrive, but they recognize, because they're devotees, that everything is coming from the Lord. So they're saying in this prayer here, let us enlighten us regarding the ways and means that we can offer you things back so we can actually enjoy this world properly and have the necessities we need, which after all are just coming from you. This is a very pious point of view. It's relatable for those who still have material desires. Like, you want to live, you want to be comfortable, but do it like a demigod. Don't do it like an animal. In Bhagavad Gita, continuing the purport, in Bhagavad Gita 3:13, it is confirmed that one who takes foodstuff after a performance of sacrifice eats real food for proper maintenance of the body and soul. But one who cooks for themselves and does not perform any sacrifice eats only lumps of sin in the shape of foodstuffs. Such sinful eating can never make one happy or free from scarcity. Famine is not due to an increase in population, as less intelligent economists think. When human society is grateful to the Lord for all his gifts for the maintenance of living entities, then there is certainly no scarcity or want in society. A person who has no God consciousness may live in opulence for the time being due to their past virtuous acts, but if one forgets their relationship with the Lord, certainly they must await the stage of starvation by the law of the powerful material nature. One cannot escape the vigilance of the powerful material nature unless they lead a God-conscious or devotional life. 50. You are the original personal founder of all the demigods and the orders of different gradations. Yet you are the oldest and are unchanged. O Lord, you have no source or superior. You have impregnated the external energy with the semen of the total living entities, yet you are unborn. 51. O Supreme Self, please give us, who are created in the beginning from the Mahatattva, the total cosmic energy, your kind directions on how we shall act. Kindly award us your perfect knowledge and potency, so that we can render you service in the different departments of subsequent creation. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports, the third canto, fifth chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Vidura's Talks with Maitreya. Jai. We made it. So we had Vidura's questions, Maitreya's glorification of Vidura, his description of the Lord created the elements, and then his description of the demigods praying for empowerment to actually do their service, their appointed service. Those are the kinds of sections of this chapter. Let's take any reflections now. Anything that stood out or questions?
Cheer.
I was sort of confused by well, there's a lot here. I was a little confused by that it's the subtle is formed first and then the gross. When I think of it like an artist will sort of make something broad strokes and then go into details, but that's not what this is saying. It's like the details are created first and then the broad strokes occur, which is very, very interesting to me.
Well, space allows for the creation of ether, allows for the existence of any of the other elements within it.
Right.
And every element is less subtle as it's developed. Right? Ether into air, into light, into water, into earth. They're becoming more and more gross. So you can think of it like that.
No, I understand what it's saying, but when I think about me trying to create something, it's interesting that I would be doing something, the big picture first and trying to go down to the subtle details, and instead this is the subtle details, then bring out the gross part of the creation. It was just interesting. I'm not saying it's.
Yeah.
Thought that was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's just me. What can I say?
I agree. I think it's really interesting. I found that to be really fascinating too. Yeah, and it was confusing at first, but then as you kind of zoomed it out, Shamya, gave us that context. It was helpful. One thing that stood out to me from the purport of text 17 was, well, I inserted the word bhakti, but it said devotional service to the Lord. So bhakti is the all-inclusive welfare service for the entire human society.
Yeah.
It's just like that provides the deepest, bhakti provides the deepest soul level care.
That's really valuable knowledge to have.
Yeah.
Because we all want to do good. It's a really universal drive. Yeah. It's right there in the Sanskrit, actually. The translation is, Maitreya, after honoring Vidura very greatly, began to speak at Vidura's request for the greatest welfare of all people. Yeah.
And it's not to say that all the other different type of social work and welfare, like I think of what your sister does, and for the unhoused in Toronto, and it doesn't negate the power and the necessity for that care, right? And it's all temporary, right? Whereas like that's what I'm also hearing this of, like bhakti, it's the all-inclusive welfare service for the entire human society, and that's welfare is eternal. Like what?
Yeah. consider the demigods who are undertaking tasks in the material world in relationship to the material elements. Like you may have a job managing some people or managing some, finances or other subtle forms of resources. Well, demigods manage like planetary systems and the air and rain and okay, but that's all material too. But yet they're devotees. They do it as a devotional service. They do it because it's necessary in the material world, right? There's a need for the material world, and so there's a need for all this paraphernalia. If you can find yourself a corner of the material world where you have to do something and do it as a service, make an honest living, you can also perform that in terms of bhakti, as the demigods do. It's honest, right? Just like later on, we hear about how they have material desires and, they want to like offer it back to the Lord without enjoying it for themselves independently. That's honest. That's a devotee's perspective. So it's this relatable thing of like, how to then do your service or whatever it is in the world in that consciousness of bhakti as the demigods do. But specifically Vidura, he's speaking to somebody who just heard from Krishna and who has no business in the world anymore. They've divested themselves of all other interests. That's the special quality of these narrations in Bhagavatam. There's no mixture of like, yeah, we'll do some business and we'll also talk about Krishna when we have time. It's like, no, these are people who are actually completely heart and soul in love with Krishna. So that is, hearing from them is the most auspicious benefit. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhupada. Yeah. Any more reflections?
Text 5.
Mm.
I took from that we have so much abundance in the world, but the one thing we're lacking is our God consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an internal shift that has to happen. Solutions to the problems aren't actually about, they don't come from externally manipulating the environment. Although that's not a bad thing to do in and of itself, it's necessary. Like we're not Luddites. We don't say technology is necessarily a bad thing. We don't refuse to take medicine. We don't, we clothe the body. We do all these things, which are in some sense unnatural. You can make a case, but we're not against that. But what we're saying is that doesn't solve the problems, right? If you use your God-given intelligence to do those things, at least recognize it's God-given intelligence. But the ultimate solution is to make that shift. That your food you're eating, the air you're breathing, whatever you have is coming from the Supreme. That shift in consciousness is actually so subtle and so powerful, right? That's what really moves the world when somebody starts to see things that way, and how they are no longer driven by their own false ego as much, right? It really drives a wedge into your material life that can thicken and leave eventually. Leave nothing behind but just pure devotional service. It's just that this idea that, oh yeah, I'm being taken care of, and gratitude and God consciousness. It's actually the most powerful transformative function. Yeah. Thanks for taking note of that purport. Yeah. Okay. Well, we made it. We made through chapter 5. Please read chapter 5, and we're going to start with chapter 6 next week, and that's exciting. I'm going to try to read, I think, an average of like a chapter and a third a day. So today was a little bit of a slower
day or a
class. We got through one chapter, but please leave your comments on anything you heard, or if you're behind, that's also okay. It doesn't matter. They're all transcendental reflections in the chat. We're super, super grateful for all those reflections to keep the narration fresh for us in the 6 days between one Krishna Katha session and another. Although we do have Bhagavatam classes on Friday mornings, just saying. All right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, YouTube crew.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.